Hey, Jeff, right here, President, CEO, South Bend Regional Chamber. We're continuing our candidate conversations. This afternoon, I'm sitting down with George Bashura. George is a candidate for PHM School Board, one of the an at-large seat there. George, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Jeff, and I appreciate the time.
George, our members appreciate the time from candidates to get to know them a little better. We're grateful for you seeking public office and want to use this opportunity to get to know you a little bit better. George, if somebody hasn't had a chance to meet you or get to know you a little bit, tell us a little bit about who George Bashura is.
I'm just one of those old-fashioned guys. I truly believe in, getting up from my desk and going to talking to somebody, not picking up the phone. I'm really a social kind of guy. My wife actually says, George, you're not the typical male. You like to talk to people. So I am definitely a people person. Um, I just love being engaged and what's going to would benefit my daughter, benefit the kids in the area, and I just believe in treating everybody great. I just love to make sure that everyone is doing good.
Great. George, tell us a little bit about what do you do for a living?
I am a program manager over at Honeywell Aerospace.
Okay. Great, good. Well, good. Well, thank you for thanks for running for office, like I said, and the chance to get to know you a little bit better. So, George, let's talk a little bit about the decision to run for school board. Obviously, that's a pretty big and important task, and not one that people take lightly. Talk to us a little bit about what inspired you to run for school board.
Well, actually, this is my second attempt to run at a school board. Prior to moving out here in 2011 to Southwest Indiana, I actually ran for the Board of Education back in Connecticut. So this is kind of like a full circle moment, 11
Yeah.
years later running. Um, I'm running because, one, like you said, it's for my daughter. I need to make sure that things are going right in the school system, and also to be a voice of the taxpayers and the other people in the area that don't necessarily know how to go and speak to the board. I want to be their conduit to make sure that their voices are heard when they have an opinion on an issue. So I strongly believe that everyone should have a voice. Not everybody can actually do that, but someone has to be the person to deliver the message. So my reason for running the board is I want to help promote change. I want to eliminate the status quo and really put some challenges out there for the superintendent's office to see how we can further improve on the Penn Harris Madison School District.
Great. George, you've been involved here for a little while now. Talk a little bit about your current impressions of the PHM system.
The PHM system, I'll say this: my daughter is part of the early college program. One of the things I really appreciate about the district is they have so many different opportunities for kids. And this isn't about just, you know, something's wrong, right? But I really want to, this whole improving a situation here. The district is great. There's a lot of opportunities, and we just need to fix the inner workings of things going on in the district.
Great. George, a lot of attention to public schools. Most of our tax dollars goes there. What do you think the biggest challenge facing public schools going forward is?
I think part of it is trying to keep the communication with the parents. There's an ever changing dynamic of what's going on out there, but also there's just different things that happen and things just evolve over time. So it's very tough. It's just very tough to put your finger on one thing. There's just so many different working parts nowadays as far as what goes into a school district.
Great. George, talk a little bit about just a school board member in particular. What do you see as the most important role that a school board member fills?
I said on my website there's four characteristics that I truly believe makes a great um, school board member. Is a person that can be a leader, communicate, can be held accountable, and can be transparent with folks. Each one of those is basically the dynamics of what makes things successful.
Great. So George, voters are choosing here in a couple weeks. Talk a little bit about if you're elected, what your highest priorities are would be as a new school board member.
My highest priorities are to restore the communication with the parents and the teachers, by the way. This is not just about the students and the parents, but it's also about the teachers. So my biggest thing is to open up the lines of communication. And I would say ultimately the important part is that I believe that the school board members need to have PHM email addresses. Currently, they use personal email addresses, and I feel that kind of flows or slows the communication aspect, that they're using personal email to communicate with when they can communicate with the public versus using a district email address.
Right. No, sounds good. George, talk a little bit about budget. So obviously we mentioned being a good steward of the taxpayer dollars and understanding that a big piece of our tax bill goes to fund public education. Talk a little bit about just sort of, how do you approach the budget and the challenges and the many needs across the corporation?
Jeff, this has actually been one of the biggest topics of the campaign when I'm out there talking with the different levels of taxpayers and the parents. The current budget that was just passed was touted as being under the referendum level, which means that they didn't have to go to referendum and that they were allowed to proceed with the budget as spelled out. And I struggle with that because we're in a recession. People got to understand what's going on in the homes of our senior citizens who are still paying into the district, though they don't have kids. They got to be thinking about the parents that have kids that are on free lunch, okay, and they need to figure out how they're going to make ends meet now with an additional tax burden. I truly believe that you have to make a decision based upon how is my decision going to impact everybody else afterwards. And with this current budget, I don't think that happened. Mr. Hawkins had mentioned in his presentation that he had a money tree. Doesn't have a money tree, but wish he had one. And of the three different times I spoke, when he mentioned this, I basically said, Mr. Hawkins, every time you need money, you don't need a money tree. What you do is you go and you have this tax levy that goes out onto the school district. And to me, that's your money tree. And I felt very offended when he was using that euphemism of saying, that when he wish he had a tree to go pick from, but he does have a tree to pick from, and that is the taxpayers of the PHM district.
Right. George, when I think of school board members as to some extent asking the hard questions, but also being champions of the corporation. If you were talking to another parent who isn't currently involved in PHM and you were trying to convince them to come enroll there, what would you tell them about PHM?
I would say, first of all, at all levels, the schools are trying. Okay. Once you get into the high school, and there's just the opportunities for your high school student are just endless. The numerous amount of teams that the different type of communities that they have within there, the different levels of you offering STEM, all these different things that they offer to a student. Um, I I would say that Penn is best in class. People look to move to this area, and what the problem is that you just sometimes you can't see what's below the surface. It's above the surface that everything is great. It's just that there are some things that are going on behind the scenes that need tweaks. Be straight up and honest with them because nothing's perfect.
Yep. All right, George, keep your sales hat on for a second. Voters have a choice in the district in the at-large position. Tell us why they should vote George Bashura for that school board at-large position.
Well, first of all, I think to be a candidate, you got to be transparent. You need to be able to be open, communicate with people. You need to be held accountable. You need to have leadership. And that includes attending meetings, that includes speaking on the record so people know where you stand on the issues. You can't go to a meeting, sit there, and then not say and not voice an opinion. Or when you go to a meeting, you just can't go and then leave early. To me, there was a perfect example here this past week that there was a meeting that went till 10:30. I was up early like everybody else in the morning. I stayed till the meeting finished at 10:30 at night. You need someone that's going to close the deal, someone that's willing to go the distance and have that sacrifice, and someone that's going to listen and fight for you. And that is me. I'm going to fight to make sure that everybody has a voice, and when they need that help, I'm going to give them that assistance.
Great. George, if people wanted more information about your campaign, where would I send them?
They can go to my website at Bashura for a unified phm.org. And on my website, I have a bunch of different links. I have an on the record tab. I talk about unity within the district. I talk about state testing and then different policies as well. So it's all spelled out there. I have nothing to hide.
Great. All right. He's George Bashura. He's a candidate for PHM at large position. George, thank you so much for spending some time with us this afternoon.
Jeff, thank you so much.